Hey babes, welcome back to Pouty Mouth, the podcast where we mouth off about religion, politics, pop culture, and the systems that shaped us. I'm your prophet and host, Tara Herbert. I'm an ex-Mormon, adoptee, and recovering good girl. Let's get pouty.
Hello? Yeah, I'll tell him. Hey sinners, it's your fucking prophet speaking. God says that we actually came from her vagina, not Adam's rib. God wants us to address her as that bitch now in all prayers and legal documents. Did you know that John has a twink on the side? Olivia doesn't even know. Oh my god, I heard that they're swingers. She practically propositioned me in the church parking lot. Having gained an angel, more like hell gained a bitch.
Today, in the spirit of spooky season, we're diving into the real-life horror stories that don't involve ghosts this time, just gynecologists. I wanted to do this episode because I find myself continually complaining about different things that have happened to me with doctors just in general. But also it was funny because on TikTok there was a guy who was kind of flabbergasted on just like women's healthcare in general, which I will share that story in the newsletter so you can see it yourself. And then I happened to also run across this news video from CNN, which was eerily similar to something I had seen a couple years ago as well. Anyways, what the news story was talking about was this gynecologist that had assaulted almost, all of his patients, doing exams that weren't necessary, and these women not knowing that they were actually being assaulted because they grew up LDS. So there was a Dr. Broadband in Utah that also did, and this other doctor was in Oregon. I guess now he's retired to Utah, but listen to this clip first and then we'll get into it.
I remember laying there and thinking, what's going on? And then he hurt me. It hurt really bad. And it made my whole body jump.
Last year we brought you the story of David Farley, who was a family doctor in a small town in Oregon, and dozens of his patients had come forward to say that he abused them. Now more than 160 of his former patients say that they suffered abuse while in his care, and many of them sat down with us and shared their stories.
I saw him over 40 times from the age of 15 to 18. And in those 40 times, he was able to sexually abuse me multiple times a year. The length at which he would check or do pap smears was extremely long. He was penetrating me and giving me rectal exams.
I just remember that he was just moving his finger a lot, and he just said everything feels really good. And then he took his hand out and kept fondling my external genitalia, and I just remember being in my car after that appointment, just sobbing on the way home because I didn't understand what was happening to me.
A lot of these women met Farley through church. He was a well-respected leader in their local Mormon community at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and a lot of them say that he used that trust and respect to take advantage of them.
I think I had 11 penetrative exams in 4 years, and I trust him, right? He's an ecclesiastical leader at church. Layer of trust. He's a physician, layer of trust.
Through his attorney, Farley has consistently declined to comment on the allegations against him. Back when we talked to these women, Farley wasn't facing any criminal charges. The medical board had stripped his license, so he couldn't be a doctor anymore, but a grand jury had declined to indict. So the women were pursuing a civil case against him, but they blamed local investigators for botching the investigation that could have put him in jail. But on Friday, there was a big new development. The state revealed that it had held a secret grand jury, which indicted him on 9 counts of felony sexual abuse and 2 related counts, all felonies. He turned himself in really early on Friday morning and was taken into custody. And later that day, he was arraigned on criminal charges for the first time. Farley pleaded not guilty to all counts, and a judge set bail at $500,000. If he posts bail, he's free to go home to Utah. He agreed that he would come back to court in Oregon when he's required to be there. It was a big turning point for these women who have been fighting for justice for more than 5 years. One of them, who was speaking anonymously because of the ongoing legal proceedings, told us, "The relief that ran through my body is indescribable. Just to know that finally something is being done brings peace in my life." Farley's trial is supposed to start in December. We'll be following it, and we'll bring you the latest updates.
Okay, so first off, my heart just goes out to every single woman who has ever been through something like that. I think when you go to your doctor, you're doing so out of trust, and them saying that he was also, their a bishop, and so they extra trusted him because not only were they a member of the Mormon church, but he was a leader within the Mormon church, and so they thought that they should be able to trust him. And yeah, a doctor who you also feel like you should absolutely be able to trust, but instead is taking advantage of you and your naivete. I think, unfortunately, for women raised in Mormonism, we are so naive. We're just not raised with an understanding of our bodies. I think this goes for a lot of high demand religions outside of just like when you're ready to get married and have babies. We just don't talk about it, which is so wild to just be left so completely in the dark. I think my husband and I have had so many conversations now after me leaving Mormonism. He's still, I don't know, on the fence, if you will, about how our decisions would have been different if we would have had all of the information, and how much we felt like we just were not prepared at all to have all of the information we needed to make an informed decision on whether we should have kids, whether we should get married so young. And so I feel really bad for these women, because I imagine that this is them going to this gynecologist, whether it was, when they're having a baby, or just to be examined to get help, right? Just in general, to get help. The fact that they were just deliberately taken advantage of. And that he knows that Mormon women in general just probably, again, didn't know that that was not part of a normal exam. For most of us, we grew up in purity culture. And so even if you lived in a state who taught sex education, I hear plenty of times most Mormon families opting out and not allowing their kids to get a full sex education. If you grew up in Utah, like me, then you just didn't have sex education at all. At least that's how it was for me. Like, it was abstinence only, so we just really didn't learn like the in-depth things to have us be able to be fully informed. I feel like I've said this in past episodes, that I go back to conversations that I've had with my parents trying to explain things to me, and like just beating around the bush so much that I had no clue what they were even saying. And then I think back to like health class, and like how uncomfortable I felt with even asking questions and still not really understanding, because they're not being direct about things. And so by the time you're an adult, like, I had not ever been to the doctor alone until I was 19. My first time going to the gynecologist, which I think is normal, I don't know, was 19, but it was because I was having issues and I would have never known what was normal and what was not. And I feel like my experience, my first time going to a gynecologist, was I was on my Mormon mission, and I was just bleeding and bleeding, like a never ending period. And so finally I started fainting and passing out, and the pain was so bad that I went to the emergency room, and they were like, yeah, like, I don't know, we think this might be a miscarriage, which was news to me, because at the time I was like, I'm a virgin. So are you telling me that I am Mother Mary? Like, am I bringing Christ to earth? Did I just miscarry Christ? Because I've literally never had penetrated sex ever. And it's so funny, because we'll get into the stories of this that you all have talked about, because our experiences are just so similar, so freaking similar. Anyways, so they're like, you must be miscarrying. I'm like, I'm a virgin. The gynecologist just didn't believe me, like, no matter how many times. And so I went to go get an ultrasound to look. They wanted it to do it vaginally, and I like literally had to tell them that I am a virgin. Like, I don't know how many times I have to tell you this, that when they're doing a pelvic exam, I would have never known so annoyed that she freaking had to give me and water and had to wait. Not normal. But I was like, luckily, I feel like everything was normally The diagnosis was premenopausal. I'm 19 years old on a Mormon mission, teaching everyone and everybody that like the best thing in the world you could do is have families and like women should be like stay-at-home moms, yada yada. Meanwhile, they just tell me that like basically you're infertile. It did end up being a misdiagnosis, but I'm shocked by how many people during that time, this was like 2013, 2014, got that diagnosis, but it ended up being polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is crazy how many people I've talked to now, and even within these stories, similar thing of just being completely misdiagnosed and it being polycystic ovarian syndrome or endometriosis or both. Just not being taken seriously. And I feel like then you get into, having kids and still not having a strong understanding of your body at all. And again, like you could be taken advantage of just like those women during that time as well, which is so sick. And I don't know, I have feelings, I guess, on male gynecologists. Until I left Mormonism, I had never not been to a male gynecologist. I had only been to male gynecologists, which is wild. And is that weird? Are male gynecologists like, is that not becoming like a taboo thing yet? Like going to a male gynecologist? Maybe this is a hot take, but like, why are males in gynecology? I'm not talking like male doctors, right? Because I was having this conversation before and somebody was like, well, like there's doctors for this. I'm like, yeah, like pediatrics, totally different. Family doctor, totally different. But like specifically gynecology. Because from my understanding, and I can Google this right now, like, I was under the understanding that gynecology is specifically like woman's doctor, right? Like guys are not going to a gynecologist. It's women who are going to a gynecologist. Let's see. Yeah, it literally says a gynecologist is a doctor who specializes in female reproductive health, right? So why? Like are maybe again, like maybe this is a hot take, but why are you wanting to specialize in female reproductive health? I get it that it's been like a just in general, everything's been dominated by men. But at this point, we need to start, I feel like, just kicking them out of there. You can no longer be a specialist in female reproductive health unless you are actually a female. I don't know though. Maybe that, I guess not even like a female, but just like, I feel like there should be like an empathy test, like misogynistic test. Like if you are going to be a guy in gynecology, because I feel like that's like the biggest thing. Like there's so much misogyny and yeah, I feel like hatred towards women in gynecology from a lot of male gynecologists. Not saying that there's not females that can have internalized misogyny too. So I guess that's really it. The whole gynecologist practice is so full of misogyny and racism. That's really what it is. And that's like facts, right? Because gynecology was born, I feel like, in the United States off of Black slaves, female slaves being tested on inhumanely. I think that's really what it is. I don't think it really matters if you're a male or a female. It's just the misogyny and racism within it. Okay, I'm glad that came full circle. So maybe it's not that males should not be gynecologists. Maybe that's like a too dumbed down take. I think that it just like, yeah, you cannot be a misogynist or a freaking racist if you're in gynecology. So add that to the test. But we're going to get into it now because there are so many different stories. We have the birth trauma, the emergency room, nightmares, and crazy women, just dismiss pain, all of it in these stories. So let's get into it because this is my mom would respond, except she's dead. Breast cancer. My mom had a breast cancer and a mastectomy, no chemo because they said they got it all. 7 years later, she complained of pain in her bones. She was referred to a psychiatrist because they thought she had empty nest syndrome? Isn't that just when your kids all leave? Like, what? Okay, even though she had a history of breast cancer. Okay, weird. She never went to the shrink and did not return to a doctor for a year since her pain was allegedly not real. Turned out she had the most common reoccurrence of breast cancer. It had metastasized to the bone. So we have a woman with a history of breast cancer complaining of pain in her bones. And they tell her it's all in her head. It's been 43 years and I'm still not over it. That is horrible. Crazy. That is absolutely crazy. That was my exact thoughts of like, wait, she's had a history of breast cancer, complaining about bone pain, and just told that like she's crazy. I don't think I would ever be over that. My appendix ruptured when I was 12. My primary care physician sent me to the ER for appendicitis. The nurse in the ER refused to treat me unless I told her how I got pregnant. I kept telling her I wasn't. My mom kept trying to get any other staff to listen and check me, but the nurse wouldn't let anyone else check me. I was in the ER for 12 hours until the shift changed, and then the new staff panicked and got me into surgery. Okay, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? First of all, you're a nurse, so why would you not go tell a doctor? A lot of times, my personal experience, the nurse has been way more than a doctor. This just totally sounds like Utah, but asking a 12-year-old how I got pregnant, excuse me? Like, get the fuck out of here and get the doctor to come check this. Like, I'm imagining the mom in this situation too. Was she just like, are you pregnant? Maybe it's pregnancy. Like, no, the primary care physician already said that it's appendicitis and that she needs to go to the ER. Wild. How is that nurse? I hope she got fired. I don't say that about nurses because usually I feel like nurses are better than a doctor. I know there's like a thing that says that like nurses are just like the high school mean girls, but that has not been my experience at all with nurses. I've always had like way better nurses than I've had doctors. But I'm starting to understand it in that instance. This one says, I discovered a lump in my breast while taking a shower. I was 33 and had just given birth a couple weeks before. I of course went to the doctor to have it checked out. He told me not to worry. It's just a milk duct blockage that goes away while breastfeeding. The lump didn't disappear though. In fact, it grew. I went back and asked for a mammogram. I was denied. I told him about the family incidences of breast cancer. He said, I'm too young. It's unlikely I have breast cancer. I nodded and went to the doctor on the private sector instead. That was a woman. She immediately arranged an urgent appointment at the radiology for mammography. At the mammography appointment, the pic confused the doctor enough to do a very long ultrasound of the tumor. It felt like ages before he decided to take a sample. It came back as cancer, and post mastectomy, it was classified as a pretty aggressive triple negative BC tumor type that was super rare. Well, I'm not sure if it's because I'm a woman, but that was the absolutely biggest dismissal I've ever experienced. I'm glad I persisted in getting it checked. I was lucky. I've been in remission for 11 years now. I also have a gene variant that makes cancer hereditary. I was tested because I was so young and because breast cancer runs in my family from both my mom and my dad. What? Like, again, like, what is hurting these doctors from just like checking? Check. Like, I get that's common. I also, when I was breastfeeding, it does feel weird, and it does because it's like when you're checking for breast cancer, they're like, oh, check for lumps, but it feels like there's lumps all over because it's your milk ducts, right? So it is scary. So I can understand that, but like, why wouldn't the doctor be like, yeah, let's check because you have such a history of breast cancer in your family. Like, let's check. The thing that like pisses me off about it is like it doesn't change anything for them. Like, our healthcare system in the US is so fucked. Like, she's going to be paying no matter what. So why is it such a big deal for you to not just fucking check? Just check. It's that easy. Just fucking check. For 5 years, I had blood in the urine and urgency. A handful of doctors just shrugged, assuming I have a vagina that bleeds, ergo urine blood. They assume because I'm sexually active, it must be a UTI. I used birth control to skip periods, still urine in the blood. I guess other way around, still blood in the urine. They still tried to blame my period. They tried to blame UTI even when no bacteria was found. Finally, I got an ultrasound. Turns out I've been passing kidney stones that whole time. Yes, it was painful, and my pain was ignored and dismissed as a UTI. Go take ibuprofen, they said. Fuck the American healthcare system. Yeah, that's wild. Truly wild. My appendix started leaking crap into my stomach when I was 16. Long story short, but at the end of a very long battle of trying to get anyone to see me, we were sent to a surgeon who said that, honestly, it's probably PMS. I'll refer you to a gynecologist. Gyno took one look at me and said, look, I'm no expert, but this seems like appendicitis. Ended up changing surgeons to a more knife-friendly dude who still didn't completely believe I had appendicitis, had the surgery, and he ended up apologizing because my appendix was leaking. The part that hurts the most is this. When the surgeon apologized, he didn't apologize to me. He refused to see me. He apologized to my mother. A 12-year-old, a 16-year-old, like, you're already so young and being dismissed and like overlooked, which is wild to start that so freaking young. These appendicitis, like, I thought like appendicitis was pretty easy to diagnose. I've even like gone to the doctor for something and it not have been appendicitis and them being like, oh, let's check for appendicitis. That's so wild. And not apologizing to her, only apologizing to her mother. Like, God, what a fucking prick. I'm a school nurse and have endometriosis and PCOS. I went to the OBGYN and brought my husband because my periods have been bad, but recently I've been having bleeding between periods, so pretty much a period every 15 days. I have an implant in my arm and will literally take everything legal when dealing with my period the last 2 months because the pain has been crippling. I've been rotating pain meds, weed, CBD, lotion, hot pad, stretching, anything I could think of, we did. The OBGYN listens to me explain how my life has been miserable the last couple of months, and she goes, have you tried Tylenol? My husband had to stop from laughing in her face, and we reminded her I'm a nurse. Of course I tried pain meds. It was so demeaning. What on earth? See, this is an example of a female OBGYN just being normalized misogyny. Because what the fuck? Also, like, the fact that she took her husband with her, I always feel like that's a good idea to do, whether it's a husband, a friend, or whatever. I know it sounds crazy going to the OBGYN, but my first time going to the OBGYN again was on my mission, and I took Whitney with me, my friend. And I was so happy that she was so pushy on, like, oh, do you want me to come with you? Do you want me to make sure? Blah, blah, blah. Because I was like really embarrassed, but I'm glad I had somebody there to, like, I don't know, just help advocate because you're the one that's like not feeling well and not really yourself. And so I think it is helpful, but that's wild to just dismiss that. But I feel like that happens with endometriosis and PCOS all the time. And like, it's so understudied. It's absolutely ridiculous how understudied it is. Like, if men had endometriosis or PCOS, they'd already have a cure. Wasn't it last year when we all discovered that they had never tested period pads or tampons on actual period blood? They'd only done it with water. I feel like I'm like tweaking out. Like, excuse me? Excuse fucking me? Like, you never tested this on period blood? It's like going insane. Like, are you dumb as fuck? Or even that there was like lead and different stuff in pads or tampons that were causing women to like go into sepsis and shock and all of these things and making your period way, way worse. That seems basic logic to me, is like, let's make sure that the stuff that we're giving you isn't causing this to be worse. They say the worst pain for men is when a gonad twists. My right ovary went through 3 complete rotations while no doctor at 2 different hospitals took my reports of pain seriously enough to run a standard diagnostic test. By the time they finally diagnosed it, after 5 days of the runaround, the organ was dead and needed to come out in an emergency surgery. If it had gone untreated much longer, I wouldn't have survived. Wow. Wow. And how often are guys getting their fucking gonads twisted? But I feel like there's always constantly problems with like our ovaries, our uterus, and just completely overlooked. And even women who are trying to get like a hysterectomy and they're too young, and doctors being like, you're too young, like you're gonna want kids, you're gonna regret this decision. Like, shut the fuck up and just do what I'm paying you to do. Again, this isn't gonna affect your life at all, doctor. So just do what the fuck I've asked you to do. Crazy. And the fact she had to go to multiple different places, like, was the first thought not just to do an ultrasound and check? Just check. You're not paying for it. She's still gonna have to pay. So even if somebody wants to do random testing that you're like, this is useless, this is not gonna do anything, like, who cares? You're not paying for it. And if somebody, I think, like, especially in the US, like, if you were wanting to go from emergency room to emergency room, those fucking bills, it must be, just to go to emergency room in general, there's something fucking wrong. Like, I don't feel like there's enough people going to emergency rooms with nothing wrong. And I know nurses and stuff have stories, but, like, I just feel like 9 times out of 10, there's probably something wrong. And even if there's not, guess what? It's their money. So who the fuck cares? When I was about 12, my arm really started hurting. I was getting fevers and was in great pain. My mom finally brought me to a local orthopedist so he can check me out. For quite some time, he just said, "Oh, she's a whiny fat girl trying to avoid school and sports. Typical." Wow. One day, my mom had enough and almost yeeted the guy across the room and demanded an x-ray scan. Turns out it was cancer eating my bone away. He only said, "Sorry, I didn't know." God, I can't believe I forgot to add fat phobia to the list too. Like, you can't be fat phobic, you can't be a misogynist, and you can't be a racist. And I'm sure there's more that goes in this list. But the fat phobia, and to tell a fucking 12-year-old that you're just a whiny fat girl wanting to avoid school sports. Listen, I don't care what size you are. All of us are trying to avoid school sports. Every last one of us was trying to avoid anything in gym class. I played sports my whole entire life. And when it came to gym class and having to do anything in gym class, I was trying to avoid it. Didn't matter how skinny I was, didn't matter how fat I was. I would use any excuse in the book. So size just doesn't even matter. We hate gym class. What the fuck? Can we just all say that that's a normal thing for kids and teenagers not to like? Who in the middle of the day wants to go for a run and not be able to shower after? Okay, so let's get that out of the way. And then to not even just look into it. I know this person has to be Gen Z because they use the word yeeted. Or maybe I'm just no, I'm not an old millennial. I'm a young millennial, so this definitely has to be Gen Z. But yeeted him across. I cannot believe that. It's literally cancer. Gosh. And again, a 12-year-old. This is like a young girl. I think it's like, yeah, kids can be whiny and different stuff, but like, again, it gets to a point, I feel like as parents, that we just know that like there's something more wrong than this kid just being whiny. My grandmother was complaining of constant nausea and difficulty going to the bathroom for years, getting worse over time. She was having trouble keeping water down, never mind foods and meds. Dismissed as symptoms of her kidney disease, even while her kidneys were doing better. She eventually demanded a colonoscopy because she thought it might be cancer. They decided she had diverticulosis. After following their dietary changes, no change. They didn't give her antibiotics or even look for another problem. After ending up in the ER 3 times for severe dehydration, the ER ran a PET scan. She had adrenal gland cancer. Had they caught it before her symptoms were so bad, it would have been survivable. Instead, they upped her blood thinners, not surprising since she couldn't keep meds down every time, which caused an eternal bleed. After the surgery for that, she ended up dying of sepsis and aspiration pneumonia. I'm still really angry at them, angry at myself for not driving out to her and going with her on one or more of her visits. Wow. And again, that's like not your fault. I can understand though the anger at yourself of like thinking, oh, there's more that I could have done. But like if everyone is dismissing her, all her doctors, going to the ER 3 times, like there's nothing that you can do at that point, even if she knows that she has something wrong. And I feel like there's also bias with patients who do have like already have diagnosis for things, like just overlooking other things that it could possibly be. That sucks. This one says, I went to the doctor with fatigue, nausea, and abdominal pain. He insisted I get a pregnancy test before proceeding with diagnosis, despite me telling him I had not had sex in a year. Sent me to get labs done and asked me to come back in a month if the problem persisted. Came back a month later, took more lab tests, same message. After a year, the lab tech pulled me aside and asked if I was okay because this was my 11th pregnancy test in a year. My gosh. The motherfucking doctor had just refused to try anything else and pregnancy tested me without telling me. I switched to a female doctor, promptly received a PCOS diagnosis. Exactly. I just get being like, oh, this could be a miscarriage. But when somebody tells you, like, no, there's no way because I haven't had sex, especially when women tell you that there's no way that I have not had sex, why is like the assumption is that she's lying and should just test her? So fucked up. Fuck that doctor. I'm glad that you found a different doctor that actually believed you and looked into this because that's wild. This one says, I got a pretty severe autoimmune disease right after I got COVID in 2020. It took me a full year of chronic pain to get answers. Every single doctor told me it was probably in my head when all their tests kept coming up negative. Finally went to a specialist who was also a woman. The rest had been male and female general practitioners and male specialists, and was diagnosed within a day after getting all proper testing done. They've had me on medication for it ever since, and I've been virtually pain-free for almost 2 years. Insanity. That's the thing, too. Like, it feels like you're going insane. It feels like you're going insane because you're like, it's like, I know there's something wrong with me, but you're not doing anything to actually check to make sure. And so, of course, you're thinking, am I insane? Is this pain all in my head? But like, crazy, crazy that she had to go to so many doctors too. And you would think after so many doctors, I feel like people always throw around the word like hypochondriac of like, oh, you must just be a hypochondriac. But like, you're turning us into hypochondriacs. Of course we are when we're not believed ever. I feel like just the fact of how many times I've like gone to doctors and been dismissed and not believed, of course I've become a hypochondriac. Of course. After multiple times describing my symptoms and being ignored or wrongfully diagnosed, I was at my wit's end. I finally started doing my own research through medical papers and such. It was years. My GP wasn't available one time, and I was sent to another female doctor that day. Of course, she took one look at me and said diet and physical therapy, which I'd already done. I knew I couldn't question her outright to save her ego, or I just asked the question, could it be vascular? She said no, but she'd run some tests. 2 weeks after receiving results, I was referred to a rheumatologist who did more extensive tests. Eventually diagnosed with severe vasculitis, giant cell arthritis. Oh my gosh, am I dumb? Basically, I had so much inflammation in my large vessels that blood could hardly get through, making me extremely susceptible to a stroke or heart attack. I'm in treatment now, but still infuriated it took so long. Wow. Holy hell. Could you imagine too, like this person going through all this stuff trying to figure out what it was, them just telling her, lose weight, you're too fat, again, being so fat phobic, and then finding out, no, actually, you have a real condition that you could have had a stroke or heart attack. Wild. I told my doctor my new medicine was making my skin burn, and I asked if this was a normal reaction. He responded, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. What the fuck? No, but you are a fucking doctor who gave her the medication. Is this a side effect of the medication or not? What does a psychologist have to do with it? So basically telling her that she's crazy? I don't know how all of us haven't, like, in one of these experiences, like, not just thrown hands at the doctor. I don't know how more women are not in jail for murdering doctors. I really don't. Because this would drive me, God, I would slap someone. I was having a stroke. The doctor wanted to put me in observation. I had to advocate for my admission while I was also missing a lot of words and knew something was wrong. I ended up asking my husband to square it away. As soon as he stepped forward, the doctor backed down and had me admitted. I was in the hospital for 5 days. Another much smaller one. My son got sick, got meds. My husband got sick, got meds. Went to the very same doctor, described the exact same symptoms, was told it was a cold, even after I pointed out that every other person in my house was sick and required meds. Ended up having to go back 3 days later because the symptoms were now out of control and missed a week's worth of work. These meds were basic antibiotics. My husband doesn't doubt me anymore when I tell him what I go through. Like, at this point, it just feels like they just want women to be in pain. That's so fucked up. And I feel like even when I think of now, the Trump administration being like, Tylenol causes autism. Even when I think of that, I'm just like, you just don't give a fuck about women's health. You know what also causes autism? Having a high fever, getting sick while you're pregnant. Like, there's probably a billion things that causes autism. And you are wanting to take away the one pain relief that women can have during pregnancy, which is a very painful process. Like, they just don't give a fuck. They just want us to be in pain. I don't know. It's so weird. I had a ruptured stomach ulcer. The doctor thought I was being dramatic about the pain and tried to have me released over my furious objections. The second my husband got involved, he backed down and agreed to an MRI. It's barbaric that women have to have a male escort them to the ER to get decent medical treatment. Yeah, what is this? The freaking 1930s? Like, come on. I feel like is feeling and looking that way right now. Freaking going backwards in time. OMG, I just remember this. I was in a car accident with my spouse and we both went to the ER to get checked out. They had minor pain in their neck and I was in extreme pain in my back. They got narcotics. I got told to take Tylenol. It was the same doctor, same day, same everything. So freaking fucked up. Like, what the fuck is happening? There's so many of these. Let's get into the pregnancy ones. I was 39 weeks pregnant and called the labor and delivery ward to tell them I was coming in. Was told to do this before arriving. They told me I was not in labor and to stay home. First of all, how would you know that over the phone? I called later that evening, giving them the updates and stating that I needed antibiotics 2 hours prior to delivery. They stated I wasn't far enough along in labor since I couldn't calmly talk through my contractions. Called again, was told to stay home. Even if my water was to break, it could still be hours before delivery. They again told me I was too calm to be in active labor. Less than 10 minutes later, my water broke. I drive 30 minutes to the hospital, delivered outside the hospital. The next time I delivered, I was induced. Told the nurse the baby was coming and to get the doctor. The doctor stated I had a long time to go. It was 4 p.m. in the afternoon. She stated probably would be around early morning hours. My husband left to call parents that were watching our children, came back, and I told the nurse to get the doctor. It's time to push. Doctor got there just as I gave first and only push, and baby arrived at 4:31 p.m. So the first time she delivered outside of the hospital because these people would not listen to her. The second time she delivered 30 minutes after she said she was going to start pushing because they still would not believe her. That is so crazy. I had a friend that was telling me that she was at the like giving birth and was listening to the doctor tell these students that were in training, listening to them say that mother will say that like she knows what's best and like she has this feeling or that feeling, but like she doesn't know what's best. Just telling them like basically don't listen to women, and that is what feels like is being taught across the board of just don't listen to them. Wild that she delivered outside the hospital. I would be like, I'm not paying you losers. Like, I cannot believe that I'm talking too calmly. First of all, that's like a movie hype. I saw somewhere that was talking about this, that like women screaming and stuff during labor is actually a fantasy, which I would believe because I didn't scream at all during any of my labors. Even when I had not had an epidural or anything, like I was, even through every contraction, not one single scream. And some women do scream. Like, it's how much you're screaming does not equate to you being further along in labor. So that was stupid. Is that being taught in schools? My water broke before contractions, so I got an exam and was sent home. If nothing happened in 24 hours, they would induce me. This was at 3 p.m. At 7 p.m., I called with my nice telephone voice, told them my contractions were here. They were so far apart and got told I wasn't ready. Call back when they got closer. 10 p.m., I phone again and report my times nicely, told I'm still not ready. Midnight, I phoned and screamed that they better get me a fucking bed because I was coming in and wasn't taking no. They said, come in. When I got there, I was already 8 centimeters dilated, almost ready to push, and was told it was too late for the pain relief. Cunts. Those are some fucking cunts. Because what? Again, just not listening. Oh my God. So fucked up. My second born was super fast, and I asked for meds the moment I arrived as I could see what was going to happen. They kept dancing around it, saying I wasn't far enough along, and then suddenly it was too late. They tried giving me the gas and air stuff, but turned out it wasn't actually connected, which my husband discovered after the baby was born. I was so mad at them. Could you imagine just not getting the nitrous, whatever? Is that what it is? They, like, you can get pain relief that isn't an epidural. And so she's asking for that and they just don't even connect it. That seems purposeful. That seems like on purpose. This one says, when my son was born, I spent an hour huffing away on nitrous machine that was off. That fucking sucked. Then I was in so much pain, I begged the doctor to check me. He was like, it'll be a few hours, and left. The pain had gotten so unbearable at that point that I begged for an epidural. They placed it through contractions, which was miserable. Laid me down so it could take effect, and baby was born in the next 10 minutes before it could kick in. They had to drag the doctor out of the operating room where he was about to scrub in for a C-section. He had the good grace to be bashful about this. It'll be a few hours, remark at least. Oh my gosh. Also, like, how do you know it's going to be a few hours? Like, is that not like birth? Like, unpredictable? This one says, I went to the hospital at 38 weeks because I was violently vomiting, shaking after a perfectly calm, morning sickness free pregnancy. I heard the nurse say, she's fine, she's going home. They were super dismissive and rude until they checked me. I was 10 centimeters and the baby was crowning. Then I had a baby. Seriously though, like seriously fuck them. What? Like why would you even say that she's fine before even checking? So freaking dumb. So dumb. First time pregnant and about 28 weeks, I started having swelling and blood pressure was continuously higher than normal. Told two OBGYNs I had anxiety and told was continuously higher than normal. Was told by two OBGYNs I had anxiety and needed to calm down. Okay. Labs were normal, so go home. Starting having horrible migraines. 2 different overnight stays in the hospital and still told it was just anxiety. Finally flipped the shit out on said OBGYNs and requested to see specialists because baby was diagnosed with IUGR due to lack of blood flow, but they weren't concerned. They were pissed but relented. Saw specialists who immediately ran full labs, urine tests, ultrasounds, etc. Yeah, preeclampsia and full-on HELLP syndrome. Had my baby at 31 weeks. Specialists saved my baby's life and mine. Never again will I just accept anxiety when I could damn well tell something was wrong. Damn. Let me look up what this GLLP syndrome. So it stands for hemolysis, elevated liver enzymes, low palate count. So it's like an extreme like end of preeclampsia, like when you have to deliver because it's going to kill the mom or baby. That's crazy. Wild. And again, like you could have just checked. You could have literally just checked because she's having those horrible migraines, like which I think are all like signs of preeclampsia. I guess maybe she didn't have the high blood pressure. The lack of they didn't think that that was bad because she already had a different thing which causes low blood pressure. It's so crazy. My doctor said, you don't have PCOS, you just need to lose weight. Your infertility isn't from PCOS, you just need to lose weight. 5 doctors and a decade later finally got a PCOS diagnosis. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and people don't understand that. Like I have PCOS as well, and it's like you don't have PCOS because you're fat. You're fat because you have PCOS. Does that make sense? Like it literally makes it so difficult to lose weight and to get in shape and stuff. Like it's way harder. And losing weight, yeah, sure can help, but also sometimes people are just fat. Like can we just agree on that? Like fat is not a derogatory thing to be or term. Like it's just a type of body, just literally, and it's okay. This one's the last one. It says, I was in labor with my first and had an epidural. I told the nurse that I could still feel pain, and she told me I was confusing it with pressure. Went through delivery with forceps, and she kept telling me to stop screaming, that I was being hysterical. I needed stitches, felt every single one. Come to find out, the epi tube wasn't taped down properly and had fallen out. So the epidural medicine was not going into her. She did not have an epidural. She had the thing in her back for the epidural, but she was not getting the medicine. Wow. Wow. That's crazy. Felt the stitches and everything. So fucked up. I cannot even believe that. And it's crazy. It's crazy how many stories that people have. I'm sure that we could go on and on. If I like left the submission box open for longer, I'm sure that there would just be, it would go on and on and on of people posting their things and just how hard the system is. I think just again, I think because gynecology in the United States has been born off of, I don't know, dismissing women's pain, well, born out of putting women in pain in the first place by men, which is crazy, just because they want to study the female body. And now it's like, still, I feel like those sadistic, misogynistic, racist beginnings of it are still within the health system within the United States, because the amount of women who just are not believed, like, it goes on and it's forever, you know? And I'm not saying that, like, yeah, every doctor needs to be perfect, but it literally, I think if, like, people genuinely, like, were not so misogynistic and not so just like, oh yeah, we don't believe that you're in pain and, like, you're just being silly, that it wouldn't be happening. I think more you would have less of these stories in general if doctors, like, just listened in general. And I feel like that's true because since being here in Kyrgyzstan, it's like night and day getting the healthcare here. And I don't know, that could possibly just be because, like, we're considered US diplomats. So, like, you can go to the embassy anytime you need to get health stuff done. But, like, a lot of the stuff is done on, like, the local market. So, like, you know, to get her x-ray, it's not done at the embassy. Different things are not done there. And I feel like it's, like, so much just smoother and easier here in the United States, which is surprising because you would think it wouldn't be, because this is a very Muslim country and, you know, a very still, like, patriarchal, I would say, country. I don't even know. I don't know. I feel like I'd have to, like, get into that because I feel like, yeah, I guess it was still a very patriarchal country, but I don't feel the same way I guess I felt like with being in patriarchy within the United States and stuff. I don't know. I'll have to think more about that. But thank you so much for sharing your stories in general. I love just being able to have that community with you all. And please, please join the Discord channel, because this week we're doing a watch party. Next week, we'll probably do the third movie in the Twilight series. And then the end of the month, we'll watch the last 2 movies in the Twilight series, which I'm so excited to talk about. I feel like I have so much to say about just, like, stuff I've been reading about Stephanie Meyers, who used to be Mormon, right? And Twilight in general. But that's it for this week's episode of If It Made You Laugh, if you made you cry, if it made you scream into a void, please do me a favor. Share this with someone, share it on your TikTok, Instagram, wherever. And you can also always, and make sure to still write in your submissions. And yeah, until next time, stay pouty, girls.
Hello? Yeah, I'll tell him. Hey sinners, it's your fucking prophet speaking. God says that we actually came from her vagina, not Adam's rib. God wants us to address her as that bitch now in all prayers and legal documents. Did you know that John has a twink on the side? Olivia doesn't even know. Oh my god, I heard that there's